It's the Extremist movie debate, and tonight we're talking 2017's Bright.
This is Aaron, and I'm Ethan. One of us is going to love it, one of us is going to hate it.
Let the coin decide their fate.
I hate it.
I love it.
Hey guys, don't turn around and kill them in slow motion while bad music plays. Spoilers are ahead. And this movie currently holds a whopping 27% on Rotten Tomatoes, which makes it rotten. Aaron, since you love this movie, this first question comes to you. This comes from Joe Reed of Decider.com. Joe says, Bright, this LAPD meets Tolkien epic will make you feel insane. The problem with Bright is obvious and recurring. The parts of the movie that are stubbornly insistent on being a cop movie end up flattening the fantasy elements, while the frequent diversions into fantasy lore end up undercutting the serious, gritty cop drama about racism. So, what do you think is the inherent risk when you take, what could be a gritty cop movie about racism and then just adding on, silly fantasy and vice versa, having a silly fantasy and then trying to add on, the most serious tones? You have 1 minute.
I would say that the flaw in that question and in that trope is the idea that fantasy has to be inherently silly and that's going to take away from a gritty cop drama. Whether or not this movie succeeds at that, no, it's totally not. There isn't a lot of really good serious fantasy, which is what I admire about this movie for trying to take on, because it's attempting to do something that is so grossly underrepresented in our culture. As we see more serious, often still lighthearted, but serious comic book movies, we don't still see a lot of serious fantasy, and I respect this movie for taking that on, even in the areas where it didn't necessarily succeed.
Okay, thank you. Fantasy is always silly. Ethan, you have 30 seconds to respond.
I think there's certainly highbrow fantasy, and you could definitely go to different areas where it's well detailed and well written and actually relevant to the world we live in today. However, this movie just throws in a couple different species and then just makes a shitty cop movie. Zootopia had more world building than this movie did. The end.
Aaron, you have 15 seconds to respond.
It's actually that's tough to respond to, because the world building, I'm just going to straight up admit the world building is the worst part of this movie.
You can't say that.
The reference to the Alamo is just horrendous. They just threw fantasy on. No. There's no refuting that even. No.
Okay, Aaron, I'm going to cut you off there. Thank you for your candor. Ethan, you have speaking of fantasy, Divergent.
I mean, he's right. 15 seconds.
Yeah, you can 15.
He's right. The world building of this movie is done during the opening credits via graffiti, and that's about it. All it consists of is there's a Dark Lord that's gonna rise. There's one point where they're talking about a story of a farmer rising up to defeat the Dark Lord using magic, an orc farmer. That sounds way fucking cooler than this movie.
Ethan.
I smell prequel.
Ethan,
I'd watch that.
Ethan, this next question is for you. This comes from Emily Godet. Godet? Goudette.
Got that. We know each other.
Okay. Oh. Hey, shout out to Emily from Newsweek. Emily says, Will Smith's Netflix movie Bright disgusted most critics, but it's pretty damn fun. The reality is that many people will watch Bright regardless of what critics say. For those souls, the movie delivers a unique, if imperfect, 2-hour distraction. So there are, your popcorn movies Mighty Power Rangers, which we loved, or Transformers The Last Night, which we also loved, fun popcorn movies. But this one, she's clearly talking about it's a straight up bad movie, but it's still great because it distracts you. What do you feel about, the idea that just because a movie can distract you for 2 hours makes it inherently good? You have 1 minute.
I don't, because I think that there are other movies that are harmless that can distract you for 2 hours that don't actually just perpetuate ideals of racism and horrible ideas of police brutality throughout culture. So I think that you can look at movies like Mighty Morphin Power Rangers where they're actually talking about having, some gay teenagers, some people with autism, a little bit of racism. They're touching on subjects that actually are going to help culture, as opposed to this where they just have orcs. Everybody hates orcs. It's the lowest common denominator. It's to assume that racism is only founded in, I feel like you are inferior and only you and your people are inferior. It's racists don't actually apply to a broad spectrum of people. So it's just all orcs, everybody hates him. Everybody's super cool with Will Smith, he's black. Everybody's super cool with everybody else. The Mexican guy, he's cool, he's Mexican. fuck the orcs. And that's what this movie does. So essentially you have a really, really bad buddy cop drama that has some moments of action, terrible world building, so all the fantasy in it exists, but it's not really enjoyable. And so you're left
Thanks,
with
Ethan.
moments.
Aaron, you have 30 seconds to respond.
See, I actually disagree with that because there are definitely moments, and there are heavier-handed moments where I see your point, but at the same time there are things that undercut that. There's a reference that the Hispanic cop makes that I mentioned, which I kind of thought was awful for different reasons, but he makes about not being forgiven for the Alamo, and then the orc says to Will Smith, "Do you have any idea what it's like to be hated by your own?" And so there are touches on other levels of racism. So I think that your take is too black and white.
Ethan, you have 15 seconds to respond.
I mean, I agree, because this movie is black and white, because when he says that to Will Smith, he never says, yes, because growing up I also experienced racism. This is a world in which racism does not exist beyond everybody fuck the orcs. And that is as far deep as it goes, and that is problematic, because you're watching a movie where everything is simplistic.
You're done. Aaron, you have a final 15 to respond.
All right, because I challenge anyone, if Will Smith had said, yes, because blah, 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 I was treated like this as a kid, to watch that fucking movie and not throw the remote through the television. Like, if he had said that, that would have made that movie just awful and unarguably terrible.
All right, well, we're going to open up the floor for discussion. You guys have 4 minutes to talk back and forth in a civil manner, and go.
I mean, I pretty much wanted to do that in the first 5 minutes where he says fairy lives don't matter today. So, yeah, I was there, man. As I watched it, I've had that sentiment exactly. So how did you get through this?
Because again, the world to me is interesting, and the idea of
what's interesting?
What's interesting is the idea of the merging of what the world that we have now and the norms that we have, and what that would look like with fantasy elements included.
How does Shrek exist in this world? If everybody that everybody hates looks like Shrek, why do they make Shrek? And also, Shrek is lampooning a bunch of fairy tales, but if these fairy tales happen in real life, how does Shrek exist?
Yeah, and what I would argue is, and what I would hope for, I've heard they're actually making a sequel, which
cool.
Yeah. What I would hope is actually that I would like to see like a Netflix Marvel type like series for this, because I think if you could do more background and world building, this had the potential to be really good. Just constrained within 2 hours, it's really difficult to pull that off.
Okay, sure. Okay, so fine. You will give it the benefit of the doubt that maybe there's more world building done on paper than there is in this actual movie. Or that they might actually leave room to develop that world.
Yes. And
okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, at face value, then, it sucks. We agree. Cool. So, then, burrowing down beyond that, how come all the gangs can just find the cops in the middle of LA? How come they just run into them at the strip club? They just run into them at the alley. Different gangs for different reasons. How come they don't give up the wand in the strip club? Why do they care at all about keeping the wand? They still have Tika. Why do they care about giving the gang the wand? Especially since everybody who touches the wand explodes. And reasonably, like, it certainly doesn't make sense why the cops want the wand to begin with, because they're like, oh my god, this can change our lives. How the fuck is it gonna change your life? You have to find somebody that can touch the fucking wand and knows all the spells. Even in the end, when, spoiler, Will Smith is a bright, didn't see that shit coming, he touches it, he doesn't know what the fuck to do, so Tika, thank god, is right there on the other side of the room, tells him what spell to say that kills whatever her name is from Prometheus. So there you go.
Numi Rapace.
Thank you. It's important that,
I didn't even notice that was her.
Oh yeah, you're welcome.
Thank you.
Yeah, she's making great career decisions.
Yeah.
Will Smith can go ahead and fart something out. I don't feel like it's at that
Will
point.
Smith is a tragedy. He's a Hollywood tragedy. He's
So-
the anti-Nick Cage.
Isn't it bad that most of the moments of this movie, most of the things that actually progress the plot rely entirely on either going against the world that they've built or extreme coincidence?
See, and I just blame genre writing on that. Like, I'm not blaming the movie. I'm just blaming. Like, don't hate the player, hate the game, man.
Well, then it goes back to my earlier point of you shouldn't be watching this because it's problematic. Go watch something that actually is progressing some sort of good values or some sort of good method of storytelling, rather than giving this more money so that we can get sequels and, God forbid, prequels featuring an awesome rad farmer orc.
And see, but if we get that awesome that prequel with the rad farmer orc, then you're gonna have to swallow those words because it took this to get to that.
But that's the thing. It's like, you know,
if you don't watch this, that never happens.
Harper Lee essentially wrote Ghost Set of Watchmen and then all of a sudden realized this isn't that good. I should just write about the fucking kids the whole time. And so what they should have done is realized, oh wait, this movie sucks ass. We should have just written about this one little thing that we threw in there and let's just make a movie about that. Scrap it. You gotta, kill your darlings. You found something better. Go do that something better. Don't focus on this and just shove it down our throats.
And to a point, I would agree with that. Except that I would also say that you have to reward attempts, or you don't get follow-up attempts.
No, you don't.
No, you don't. And also, this is Netflix. They're like, their motto is "We reward attempts." Come, everybody. Characters welcome. Netflix. They'll take anything. So yeah, I mean, you could write anything that you wanted, and they'll still give you a screen. They'll still give you, every opportunity to make your movie. So
yeah, and I think that's awesome. That is
great. Go Netflix. So. Then they should have realized. I don't know why I'm saying they. Landis should have realized that Raper Landis.
Shut up.
Oh yeah, look it up.
Wait, what is the last thing you just said?
That Raper Landis.
Oh boy, I don't want to look that up.
He's apparently not a cool dude. I'm sorry, Joe. Joe likes Max Landis a lot.
I don't know what else he did.
That's not
Did
surprising.
he do Chronicle?
Chronicle.
Oh,
Yep.
It's actually more surprising if he's not.
Yep.
Yeah. Before we talk about how we really feel, I'm just gonna award Aaron the win because the phrase "don't hate the player, hate the game" has never been spoken on this podcast or webcast. So
Yeah.
good job. All right, so how'd you guys really feel?
It's a big old bucket of meh.
Yeah, as I mentioned earlier, like I had strongly ambivalent feelings about it, cause like that I wanted to like it a lot, and it's hugely flawed. So like I actually had the opposite reaction of meh. I had strong like and strong dislike writing co-pilot the whole way through the movie. So
What specifically?
as far as like or dislike,
Yeah, either one.
like I said, I think that that's what we. I watched Willow with some friends who'd never seen it, which was like surprising to me, and that's one of my favorite movies ever. And try and pick another really good, moderately serious fantasy movie. They almost don't exist.
Yeah.
So I was stoked to see that treatment given, and that combination of.
Twilight.
Jeff wins.
That's not serious.
It's pretty serious.
No, it's not.
Horny teens are serious.
Yeah, that's not serious. Horny teenagers are not serious. Like that's no. There's no win there. So though that was the stuff that I liked about it, and I also like the genres of melding technology and fantasy. I think that's an interesting interaction. But again, that's partially where this completely failed, and that's where my abomination of the Alamo reference comes from.
Sure.
Because why does the Alamo even happen?
Sure.
If you have like all of this magic and technology, but somehow history is the same all the way up until this point,
Yep.
while simultaneously they've had magic this whole time. It's like that's really stupid.
Yep.
Like you'd have to have a different history.
Yep.
And they clearly didn't have time to do that. But those were the huge holes, and those potholes were really noticeable all the way
Yeah,
through.
they saw an idea that they thought that's a really fun idea, which it is. Admittedly,
Totally
it's a really
is.
fun idea
Yeah.
to meld those two worlds, but then they did not develop it any
Yeah.
further, which they needed to
Absolutely.
in order for it to actually stick at all.
And can we just pour one out for Will Smith, that poor guy?
I mean, he's fine.
I've always thought
He's
Will
good.
Smith sucks.
I've always really liked
I'm
Will
not
Smith,
a-
and I
I-
hate almost all his movies.
I'm not a huge Will Smith fan. I don't think he's good. I don't think he's charming, and everyone who loves him just goes, yeah, but Independence Day. But that movie's also fine.
Yeah, no, that's
I
not.
should specify. I mean, he's
Stop
fine
looking
in
at
life.
me. Is he though?
He's doing okay. I'm just saying, maybe he's not making good career choices. Maybe you can say he's a terrible actor, but
He's really
he's
not,
doing
though.
okay. And at this point, he can probably do whatever the hell he wants, and I think like he is.
He was good. He was really good in Ali.
Yes.
I mean, he's
15
so
years ago?
Yeah, but again, and that's what I'm saying. Like, he's actually talented. He's just he's the like I said, he's the anti Nick Cage or the anti Keanu Reeves. So like the people who are not that talented and make fun, entertaining movies. Will Smith is really talented, and he tends to pick crappy movies.
Yep.
I, Robot.
I think Keanu Reeves is
Love
a good
that
actor
movie.
who makes good movies. Anyways, what would you guys rate the movie?
4, No Thunder.
I'm going to actually be even more condescending and pat it on the head and rate it. It had a lot of potential.
So out of 10.
Out of 10,
Is that a 6?
that's a you don't even get a number.
How much does it resonate with you?
How much does it resonate with me?
That's the thunder.
Yeah, that would be about the thunder of a sunny day. That would be clear skies.
Cool.
All right. Well, it sounds like
So that's a hard
I
pass.
I accidentally dodged a bullet not watching this movie. Okay. Well, cool. Aaron, thank you for being
Thank you
here.
so much, Aaron.
We appreciate
You're
it.
welcome.
I guess now's the time to break the news that Joe has been fired.
Joe's been replaced.
Where can we find us, Ethan?
Extremist Movie Debate. Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, Facebook, Gmail.
emd.panfunny.com. Hold on, Aaron's going to say something.
I just want to say, much like Netflix, again, we are rewarding attempts here, and we are giving a new person a chance. We have fired Joe, and we are giving Jeff. We have Jeff.
Where
We're
he
giving Jeff a
sits
chance.
in the same spot, and then we brought in Aaron
I
above
was gonna
him.
say, what is this we? You don't work for
Got
us.
skipped.
You're you're the new intern. emd.pantspending.com, artificialwoods.pantspending.com. Thank you to Mitch Davis for the cool intro video.
Summer in Siberia.
Justin Hines, Summer in
Thanks,
Siberia.
guys.
Yeah, thanks for the intro, outro. Patreon might happen, might not.
Jesus.
I don't know, man. Ethan just dropped a fire mixtape on SoundCloud. Thank you and good night.